Hey friends, welcome to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Danita Cummins, and welcome to episode 12. That's pretty cool. Today I'm chatting with Aaron Bernat, who's a successful content creator and he's a coach with Zach Dixon Coaching. And he came on the show today so we could talk about mindset, and he shares some tools that his team uses to help his clients reprogram the emotions of the subconscious mind. It's pretty exciting stuff. So let's get started. Doing things alone is entirely overrated. We all need a community to thrive. And that's why I'm part of an online community of writers and speakers, podcasters, and entrepreneurs called Cultivators. And I love it. In the years since I joined this community, I've launched new ideas and I finally executed the dreams that sat on the shelf for years. Seriously. And I was able to do this because of the outstanding group of mentors, exceptional training, and encouraging mastermind groups with my new friends who did and continue to give me invaluable feedback. Oh, and not to mention all the fun, because we have had lots and lots of fun. Have you ever said, I want to write a book? Or do you want to use your voice for the exciting world of podcasting? If so, Called Creatives is your best resource for up-to-the-minute industry training, expert advice, live coaching, and peer support like no other. Best-selling authors and speakers Allie Worthington and Lisa Whittle lead this community with a no-competition mission, and it shows. So join my friends and I in the Called Creative community. Head to my show notes, danitacummins.com/podcast, and click the link to get all the details to join. I promise you won't regret it. I look forward to seeing you in the community and watching you grow. Hey friends, welcome to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I am your host, Danita Cummins. Today, I am chatting with my new friend, Aaron Bernat, who is a successful content creator and a coach with Zach Dixon Coaching. And he's here today to talk about mindset and share some of their coaching approaches for success, and just hopefully to have just a great conversation with him about his experiences and his journey that he's had thus far. So thanks, Aaron, for joining me today. I'm super glad that you're here.
Thank you so much, Danita, for having me.
I think with your experience, you shared on our last call that you have worked in content creation, you have a background in a lot of different things. But why don't you give us a little bit more about yourself and how you've developed your passion for leadership?
Yeah, so I actually find myself in this really interesting position now where I find leadership to be one of the most important things in life, leading yourself, leading your loved ones, and leading people that you've, just recently met. And what does that actually mean? It means, I guess I'll start with this to be on theme with the podcast. Like, leading to me is congruency and then stepping into that responsibility with that congruency. So that if you can do those two things, then you can put your heads together with everybody and their strengths and weaknesses can show. But if they're all being congruent with their strengths and they're all being congruent with living that and stepping into that responsibility, as a team, you can really achieve many, many great things. And pretty much the world is your oyster. As cliche as that sounds, the world quite literally is your oyster. And I feel like, I don't even know I don't know why that saying that actually doesn't make any sense now that I use it, but it was an expression I'm sure people understand. But the point is, I feel like if you can step into that leadership position, that's actually what I attribute most of my personal success to. I'm only 28 years old, but I feel like I've achieved a decent amount of things that I'm pretty proud of at this age. More to come. I mean, it could have been more, but more to come.
Yeah.
And so I just get into my story just so that people have at least that context of my views before I get into it. So now that I've colored everything with that, I just like to, I just share my story. So actually, I was born and raised in Hawaii. So island boy, born and raised in America, very typical middle-class family. And I actually found an interest in software development and tech in high school. I remember this guy actually came to a job fair at my high school. And he actually spoke about how software developers could make so much money and the world needed them. I mean, ChatGPT recently has kind of thrown that out the window in the past few weeks. But regardless, I had a big inspiration for that. And I was like, I love tech. I want to do that. I used to play a lot of video games, as most kids my age and younger, especially guys, did at that age. So I had a dream of like, I want to make a bunch of money being a software developer and I want to code computers and make video games. Like, that was my dream. So I started there, not knowing anything. So ended up going to college for that. Went to undergraduate school in Hawaii for myself and studied really hard. Pretty good student. I wasn't the snobby 4.0, but I was the snobby 3.6 GPA kind of student. You know what I mean? Like I'm smart, but I'm not snobby. Like that's how I like to explain myself. So I was there. That was all great. And I went through that, still not knowing pretty much anything about leadership or business or entrepreneurship. I knew nothing. So I was, 21 at the time when I graduated. And I actually decided, hey, well, why don't I pursue this? Because I thought it was cool. And I actually had an internship in a tech company called Oceanit in Hawaii. And there was a guy there who was studying AI. He did his undergrad at Harvard and his PhD at MIT. So he's a very, very established guy in the artificial intelligence space. And he actually inspired me to go to graduate school for AI, which is where I decided to pursue that. So I actually applied to a few schools, Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia, being one of them on their online program. And that's actually the one I got accepted to and I ended up enrolling into. So I went there and I decided to go down this whole AI route, which is very fascinating to me now, even especially with ChatGPT and stuff coming out. AI, I think, is an amazing field, but still very much in the employee mindset, grinding away there. And then some personal things in my life happened, relationships ended, this, that. I ended up moving out. And this is actually when the real story starts, I suppose. So that's a little bit of background, but this is how I ended up meeting my friend Kazi, my best friend Kazi, who founded the Clever Programmer YouTube channel, which was my first glimpse into the real world and how leadership and sales and marketing and personal development and everything can tie together. So you're not confined to the box of being an employee or, just being a leaf in the wind being blown around. So that's when I really found what I really wanted to do. So once my eyes opened to that, I moved out to Los Angeles. I met Kazi at a seminar, actually, at a social networking seminar, I think about based on communication skills. And I was applying for jobs at this time. I was applying for jobs and I couldn't find any. Nobody was hiring. I was like, I'm at Georgia Tech. Like, this should be easy in Los Angeles to find an entry-level job, but it wasn't. Right. Apparently it wasn't. This isn't unique to my industry either. I think it's most industries, right? It's like entry-level jobs require 4 years of professional experience before you can, it makes no sense. Yes. So that's just one crack in the system that I noticed. But that really is what sprouted everything. I couldn't find a job. I applied to like 50. I remembered like going crazy on their resumes and on indoor.com and all these other, websites and stuff. And I reached out to him. I was like, yo, do you know anybody hiring? And he's like, bro, why don't you just come work on the YouTube channel with me? It was much smaller at the time. Now we're at 1.2 million subs. Wow. But that was really the start of it. That was the start of it. I went there. I took a semester off. I learned that he also dropped out of college because his professor started asking him how to make money at one point. Wow. And he's like, what's wrong with this picture? So he dropped out of school. I took a semester off from Georgia Tech, and that semester off went so well. I was learning about copywriting and sales and learning about myself and marketing and, content creation and leads and funnels and all these things, all these good, juicy things that I didn't even exist in. When he's like, hey, do you know what copywriting is? I was like, you mean like that thing, like with the C and the circle? Like, is that what you're talking about? No, he's like, no, copywriting. I remember him telling me at a WeWork one time, do you know what copywriting is, man? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what sales, I didn't even know what these terms meant. I was so naive, but those 6 months were amazing. And after those 6 months, I took a semester off. You can imagine, I actually just never went back. I just ended up dropping out there, even though it was in my last semester. Yeah. I was one semester away from getting my master's. From Georgia Tech. And there's like a 2.5 year grace period where you can go back and finish it off if you wanted to, but that window has now completely left. So basically all my credits have been undone. Wow. Right. And I'm not upset about that, but that kind of is my story. That was like the genesis story of that. And then from then on, it was a big startup, very, very big startup vibe to the whole team. It was me and 2 or 3 other people, but like 3 or 4 of us total, 3 in person and 1 remote VA in the UK. She was an older lady, a great lady. And it was just us 3. And we just built that thing up. And through a lot of the leadership stuff that I want to get into soon to be on brand for your podcast. No, you're good. A lot of the leadership stuff really, really mattered there. And then after that YouTube channel, I eventually, after a couple years, I actually left that whole channel and the tech space in general to start working on business owners and mindset in general. Because I realized coding is cool, but I always wanted to dig deeper, which leads me to where I am today in 2023. Of working on mindset and people instead of computers. So I still code as a tool, but I'm never going to go back to coding as an actual job or as a business. I use it for myself. Like everybody sees how useful ChatGPT is now, but that's where I find myself now. So now I work on mindset and I've gone even deeper into leadership and congruency and all those great things that I love talking about and living. And that's kind of my story abbreviated. And I'd love to go more in depth around the whole YouTube channel and also what I'm doing now, because those are the more relevant pieces. So I just want to make it a conversation instead of just me blabbering my story on at you.
Yeah.
But I just give that context, Anita, and we'll just take it from here. We'll just have an open discussion about things.
Yeah. It's so good because I love the fact that you were like, hey, went to college, had this passion for, video gaming and technology. And I work in the tech space, and I've been in the tech space my whole adult career, basically. Not a programmer. I took one programming class in college and it was really hard. And I was like, nope, not my love language. And so, but I've worked in the tech industry.
Bad teacher. It's not hard.
Might have been. We could talk about that later. Yeah. And so
watch my videos. I'll teach you.
I'm with you though. I'm in that same space. I'm like, I left the programming world. I'm not going to be a programmer. I love technology and I love, what it can do. But yeah, I kind of have separated that place in my life at this point. But I think it's great that you said, hey, I have this passion. I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to go get education, do the thing that I think I'm supposed to do. And then you get to a certain point, and then you get into, the real world and you're like, actually, I didn't need to do that. Not to discredit the guys and girls who, and people who do graduate and have a master's degree and go on to get a PhD. Like there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I think we get in that mindset, like you're saying, like, this is what I know. This is my definition of what success looks like. And then you kind of get into it. And I just think it's fascinating that you last semester of college, you're like, actually, I'm going to go do this other thing. And you love it. So I think that's really great. But so it's good. I'm glad you shared that. So now you've moved over. So now you're doing coaching. And how did that where did that come from? Where'd that transition go and how did that work together?
Okay, so let me add to the story. So everybody kind of has the glimpse of the whole thing. So I guess we'll fill in this story like Lego blocks, right? Like we're kids again, right? Piece by piece.
Yeah.
Or maybe more akin to a game of Jenga, because it might all fall apart in the end. We'll see though. We'll I have a bad sense of humor as well. But
that's good. That's pretty much life is one block away from, destruction. So
Yeah. But okay, so let me get into the story. So actually, the team I work on now, we're called Infinite Coaching or Zach Dixon Coaching. That's the name of the founder of the company. And we focus primarily on mindset and helping online business owners, especially coaches, consultants, service providers, build up their businesses through 80% mindset, 20% strategy. We believe that every goal that has been set and has been achieved was preceded by a mindset and a desire to do it. So that's always step one. So if you're lacking that, any success is actually just luck and it's not sustainable. And we believe that you're doing it incorrectly. So that's kind of the premise of what I'm doing now. So this is how I actually ended up here. When I was on the YouTube channel, my friend Kazi, who founded the channel, clever programmer, just spoke to him earlier today, actually about an hour ago, but he actually hired Zach Dixon as his coach early on to teach us about sales, about mindset, about personal life, whether it was relationship issues. And Kazi was going through some personal relationship stuff at the time, which is very stressful, details omitted, business stuff was going on. So we actually hired Zach. And that actually is a big reason to why the Clever Programmer brand did so well, because we had a lot of success on the YouTube channel, scaling up. We did a lot of money through organic, email marketing, through paid. We ran a lot of Facebook and Instagram ads. We made a lot of money there, a lot of revenue, also a lot of profit. And we can get in the numbers if you want later a little bit. But we ended up hiring Zach. And through all that, through his ability to help us with sales and whatnot, we were able to start doing higher ticket offers. And that's actually what led us to being successful at Clever Programmer. And then eventually, once I found that my passion didn't lie with tech and I had that realization that I wanted to go into mindset, I remembered the Zach guy, and we had hired him like a year prior. I was like, hey, Kazi, who was that Australian guy that yells a lot? Like, who is that guy that was yelling at us? Like, do you remember him?
Yeah.
And I had him reach out, and then I ended up hiring him myself directly to build up my own coaching business, which I did for a year. And then a little bit later on, after that happened, I'm a big believer that if you have goals, if your goals are so big that you can achieve them by yourself and yourself only, you need bigger goals. That's kind of a saying that I got from somebody named Derek Moneyberg on Instagram. You can look him up. He has like 4 million followers now or something, but I got that quote from him. Yeah, if your goals are so big you can achieve them yourself, you need bigger goals. So I figured, okay, I'm going to live by that and partner up with Zach.
Yeah.
I want to bring my content and technology experience to him and then take his coaching experience into me. and see how far we can take this thing to just have maximum impact. So that's actually how I ended up on the team. And now I've been with Zach for almost a couple years now. Yeah. And that's been the story of how I actually ended up here and what I do now. And now I truly feel that this is actually my calling. So we have a big mix of neuroscience, of NLP, of hypnotherapy, of even just faith and sales and belief and money mindset, self-esteem, congruency, leadership, all these great buzzwords, right? That we focus on. But now my life is just flooded with these ideas. But coloring it all definitely is leadership, which I know is the topic of this podcast. So, and I do believe that's kind of one of the most important things, because I have to lead when it comes to my expertise, like what I'm good at. When it comes to content, I have to lead Zach. When it comes to coaching or sales, he has to lead me, and vice versa. We all have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. I know you were in the Air Force at one point, I believe, Danita?
Yeah, the Air Force.
Okay, I remember,
the Army.
Remember correctly.
Yeah, and then I worked for the Army.
And the Army.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay, well, first of all, thank you for serving.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
But I was tying this to, so I would suppose being in the Army and the Air Force, you, of course, know the importance of leadership, and you've probably had some leadership too. But I'm sure you know a lot more about that kind of stuff than I do, right? I don't have any experience in that field. So when it comes to that, or podcasting, right? I don't have a podcast. I've spoken on podcasts, but you would lead me through that. So I think leadership, isn't it like, oh, there's a leader and there's a follower? I think it's very fluid.
Yes, I agree. No, I think that's great, because it's that high performing teams, right? That's what we like to focus on leadership. We like to call them high performing teams. But the part that you keyed in on was that creating an environment where everyone their strengths come together, and it makes everyone stronger. And I think that letting a person who is the strongest in whatever discipline or whatever function that is, acknowledging that and having maybe the humility to say, hey, this isn't my strength, this is your strength. And so I need you to knock it out of the park, right? And that's how we all are successful together. And I see that too when I work with small teams. In the military, on the special operations side, they're really good at doing that thing, because not everyone is the same, and they intentionally bring them in on a small team, a small squad or ODC or whatever it is. But they're doing that. They're intentionally selecting the people, and then they train them, but then they give them a wide berth to be able to make decisions, because the environment they work in is very dynamic and fluid. Of course, the military is, but especially when we look into the special operations community, so they do that, but they really focus on that team mentality, because you're not out there by yourself. Sometimes you are, but very rarely. You have to rely on a team of people. And so I think that was a great point of you saying it's not linear, right? It's not flat. It's all this dynamic, fluid thing that just is consistently moving or constantly moving. So when you look back I guess you're still working with Clever Programmers, or you're still working with the YouTube channel, and you're doing the coaching stuff too. So are you still doing
a little bit,
both of them?
Once a week?
Yeah. Okay. So do you see that dynamic?
So I work with the YouTube channel once a week, and then Zach most of the time.
Gotcha. So what about the Zach Dixon Coaching program? Like, what was it that was that piece where you decided at that time, like, I need this for me? What was it about that? You talked a lot about neuroscience and the different programs and things you're offering, but is there something that you can kind of still down to, like, this was the thing that really got me where I was like, okay, I definitely want to do this?
Yes. So I know exactly how to answer this question. So I should start a little bit. Let me go back to the YouTube channel. Let me start with the YouTube channel. There has been many incidences where we all had to step into leadership roles where our strengths, just like you said, similar to the military and the different divisions. I had to step in like many times, like I was the psychotic, detail-oriented, let's perfect this to perfection kind of thing, but spend way too long on a project guy, versus Kazi was more of the overarching bird's eye view, direct general guidance, managerial kind of role. And then there was another guy named Frankie who was much more of the woo-woo idea, tying all this stuff. Like I was the depth, Frankie was the breadth, and Kazi was the orchestrator of both. And it was us three together that really were able to do that. I remember there was this time where we were shooting an ad, a Facebook ad, and Kazi and Frankie were both just did not want to shoot this ad. They had no emotional investment into it, but I was pumped as heck. And I think we shot for like 11 or 12 hours straight. We did like 60 takes of like this one shot, because we had to condense as much value into a 2-minute ad as possible. And the ad actually ended up making us, I think, close to $500,000 revenue, not profit, but still it did a lot of revenue over a 4 to 6 month period. And I just remember carrying that, stepping into that role. And then they're just like, we don't know where that energy came from, Aaron. What the heck? So that's just one quick story of how me stepping into a leadership role in that time and really just being like, no, we have to perfect this. Like, they're like, take 2 is good enough. I'm like, no, it's not. Take 54 was good enough. Not take 2, right? They wanted to cut it, but it's good that I actually pushed the team all the way because it actually paid off. So that's just an example of me doing that and being congruent, because I was genuinely excited about making that ad as good as possible. And I wasn't in the ad. Kazi was mainly the face. So I had to coerce him, right? And just like, I had to constantly sell him and lead him that this was the right thing to do. I'm like, not good enough. Again. And we were literally just in a WeWork shooting this thing.
Really?
But that's one story I wanted to share. And that's relevant to how I ended up with Zach, because there's been many incidences like that. And with my depth though, I actually found myself falling into a chasing energy. Like, oh, we got to make the ad. We have to do the next launch. We have to make more money. We have to, like, it was never enough.
Is it more like adrenaline, do you think?
No, it was a little bit of that. Like in the short term and on like an hour to hour, day to day or project to project basis, it was adrenaline. But on the large scale of the 2 years where I was there full time, I noticed my self-esteem and my groundedness, my confidence slowly decline. It wasn't linear. It was a little up and down as we went. And, personal life stuff, girlfriends coming and going and family stuff happening and dogs dying and stuff like that, right? So things happening up and down. But over the long course of those 2 years, I noticed that even though I was stepping into leadership positions, I was neglecting the aligned, grounded, calm kind of perspective to life and business in general. And it was negatively affecting my self-esteem, the way I was conducting myself and the way it actually worked on the team because of my role of being depth. If I was so psychotic about details, nothing was ever perfect. You can kind of see how if nothing's ever perfect, I never think I'm perfect. I'm not good enough. I'm never good enough. And then that slowly ate away at me. And it actually built up over a period of time. And some tensions between me and my friends built up because of that, which was nobody's fault. It snuck up on all of us. But it got to the point where I couldn't breathe and I needed to leave. So that's kind of where I realized, like, it doesn't matter that we're a tech channel. It could have been a tax, loophole channel. It could have been a, working on cars channel. That's just surface level thing. But I realized anything surface level, if my business is based on that and I'm neglecting the inner work on myself to lead even better, because I was leading on that team, but now I feel like I'm an even better leader. I'm even more well-rounded, that I wanted to cut deeper. And that's really how I exited coding, but not even just coding. I exited all surface level skills and I wanted to cut down to the core, to the actual core. So, I got a lot of inspiration from people like Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, Wayne Dyer, even the old Stoic philosophers, right? Napoleon Hill, all these people. And I got into this, and that's how I found myself on the team with Zach, where now I'm fully on leadership, but I had to put my self-esteem and my mental and physical well-being first before I can help anybody else. So that was really my paradigm shift.
That's so true.
I was too self-sacrificing. I'd give everything for the team, but if I devolve into degeneracy and uselessness, I'm no good use to anybody. So that's the shift that I actually had that actually, on a personal note, is what actually made me change to working with Zach. And it's great because Zach is the one who dug me out of that, because I reached out to him when I was in that portion. I didn't know what to do. And then he helped me turn things around. And that's how I ended up working with Zach. So I kind of like to think working with Kazi and the team and Clever Programmer and building up the YouTube channel and stepping into my leadership roles there, it broke me out of society and opened the door for me, but it tied me down. But the door was open. And what Zach was able to do for me was, hey, see that door's open? He was able to untie me and let me get up and walk through it. And now that I'm out here, I feel like I'm fully aligned. And now leadership is a part of my everyday because I have clients that I must help and I have to lead them through their doubts and their skepticisms and their fears and their traumas, right? And I have to serve them and serve myself. So I feel like my leadership skills have greatly improved now that I've gotten a little more life experience and more to come. But that is the long-winded answer to why I actually left and how I ended up here. So I'm a big believer and the main thing with Zach that actually helped me do it was simply managing how I saw things, my perspective, and my emotional state multiple times throughout the day. And it's literally just that one simple idea. We literally call it the 6 times a day method, that I fully accredit me being able to get to the point where I'm happy to be now. So like it's in my bio. It's through bi-hourly conditioning, changing yourself for the better so that you can be a better leader.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about that before. The 6-minute mindset, is that what it is that you had talked about before? Is that program where you multiple times a day?
The 6 times a day method.
6 times a day. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to go back to that place when you were, where you knew that something needed to change. And if you could bottle that or put a label on it, what was that feeling, or what was that place where you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore? Because I feel like a lot of people get in that place where they know something needs to change, but then because of fear or because of insecurity or confusion, right? Because we don't know where to go. I mean, you had someone that you knew you could reach out to, hey, this guy helped us. Maybe he can help me. But was there that place where you sat in this weird space of confusion or no, I'm not really sure, before you finally made the decision, okay, I have to do something. Something's got to change.
Yes, absolutely. And if you hear Mexican music outside, just ignore that.
I do.
My window isn't soundproof, so. Can you hear that?
It's okay.
Okay, well.
I can. It's so good.
Now your audience is being blessed with traditional, I'm smack dab in the middle of Mexico.
Friday night party, yeah. So
to answer your question, Danita, yes, there was a period where I felt very stuck and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't even conscious of it because it was a 2-year period. Again, just to recap, I misunderstood leadership for sacrificing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And sacrificing yourself is only the right decision if it's the ultimate sacrifice and you have to, going off to war, sacrifice yourself to protect your family. That's the only time I think self-sacrifice is necessary to that extent. We're built to protect as leaders. But if it's little tiny sacrifices that isn't the full sacrifice, they can add up. And I actually think that's bad. So this is what was actually happening. I wasn't even conscious of it. But in hindsight, hindsight's 20/20. I realized, I'm so detail oriented. I'm such a perfectionist, being a developer and everything. And I wanted to serve my friends and everything. And I had a bit of an old pleasing attitude back in the day too, that was slowly chipping away at my self-worth. And I didn't know why I was slipping into these negative emotional states of worthlessness and depression and stuff. And I stopped hitting the gym as much. I stopped eating as much. It just wasn't good. And I was like, what the heck is this? And I did reach out to Zach for help, but it was actually Kazi, my friend, who decided to step into his leadership role as more of the higher arcing CEO type, me being the right-hand execution type. And he was the one who was able to help me pull the cord because I didn't have the courage, because I was in the paradigm of the team needs me. So I would never leave. But he could see that it was destroying me. So it was a hard conversation. I don't want to get emotional here.
It's okay.
So he had to bring that up. And so he stepped into leadership role for me there. And then he made the call with hey man, I actually don't think you're happy here. What do you want to do? And then that's actually what gave me the courage to push. And then with Zach's help, because he's an unbiased third party who knew Kazi and me both, right? Because Kazi was his client years prior. Zach coached me through that and then was able to get me back into my more aligned life. Because, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter how much money you're making or where you live or anything. If your own emotional state isn't good, even if people are loving you, right? I have a lot of love in my life, family and friends and Kazi and everybody. But if I didn't love myself, then everything just didn't work out. So that was my big challenge. And then it's just honestly just been an upward trajectory since I started working with Zach. So started with that. Wow. And now I honestly attribute the 6 times a day method to me being able to step into my most aligned place and be the best leader I can be, and hoping to being an even better leader in the future going forward. My teams that I'm on, and eventually the family I hope to have in, 5 or 10 years.
In 5 or 10 years. Yeah. So would you talk a little bit about the method, that 6 times a day method? What is that?
Yeah. So it sounds very simple. It's extremely literal, but it's as simple as, I don't know if we talked about this before the call when we were just catching up really quickly, Danita, but I'm a big believer that if you do something, and I'm sure everybody can agree, if you do something daily, you're going to get pretty dang good at it. You're going to get pretty dang good at it. So if you do something hourly or every hour or 2 or 3 hours, you do multiple times throughout the day, you're going to get really good at it because you're taking that on as your entire lifestyle. And if you're living and breathing that, that will eventually become you if you do it enough times. This is why most people in Asia have Asian accents. This is why most people in America have American accents. Most people in, in any country, Australia have Australian accents. we're just byproducts of our environments and the patterns that we find ourselves in. And we inherit a lot from our parents and society and our personal experiences. But the point is, we're all conditioning. So
Yeah.
to go against, 30 years or 50 years of conditioning, the only way to do it is to condition against it for a long enough period of time with enough intensity, whatever balance you want. The more intense, the less consistency you need. And the less intense, the more consistency you need. But both together need to be strong enough the net power of that consistency and intensity of emotion needs to be strong enough for you to actually make a change. So it's as simple as just committing to 6 times throughout the day. Any negative thoughts or feelings that aren't serving me and are making me feel disempowered, I disassociate from the bad and I want to associate to anything good. So it's as simple as using some physical meditation practices, through breathing. Breathing has been proven to slow down your brain waves, right? From a very fast fight or flight response kind of neurological state to a calm, almost dreamy, almost about to fall asleep meditative state, which is actually, and we actually talk about brainwaves a lot too. So there's actually a brainwave called delta, which is what the state your brain is in right before you fall asleep. So quite literally, the brainwave state where your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are still kind of awake. And since they're both awake, that's the little window where your conscious mind can best communicate to the subconscious mind and influence it slowly. It doesn't happen fast, but this is why meditation is so powerful. If we can get you into that mental state, then that's how we can actually slowly, 6 times throughout the day, slowly program and suggest the right things to your subconscious mind to where your conscious mind in your mind says, hey, think this, feel this, and your body will eventually listen to it over weeks and months. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks for the changes to solidify. And then it just keeps going up from there. But that is the general explanation of why we do it is 6 times throughout the day, do a little 5 to 10 minute meditation, say a few affirmations and really embed the right feelings and associate those to the right actions that you want to do, right? If you're avoiding something, you have to feel feelings of gratitude and confidence and strength. And just remember a time you felt those, feel those while you're in that theta brainwave state, very suggestible. And then think about the thing you have to do and associate those. And that over time chips away. And that's the best way to actually control. You have to control yourself and how you feel about things. So for me, I had to do the same thing to undo any resentments or confusions or worth issues that I had towards my old team Clever Programmer and reinstall new ones that it was nobody's fault. And I was happy with it, happy with everything that happened. And we all have good intentions for each other. And then also now coming into working with Zach and just perpetuating that. So for me, I've been on many podcasts before, but the very first podcast I was ever on, I was kind of nervous. So what do? 6 times a day method, meditate, get in a meditative state, feel feelings of power and strength and confidence and serving people as much as I can. And then think about doing the podcast while I'm feeling those emotions and associate those together and do that right before I do the actual podcast. And then that 6 times a day method leads to you actually doing it, which is real world, evidence and support that it works. And then that just all snowballs together. So as you cultivate it inside 6 times throughout the day, it slowly starts manifesting in the outside world. And that's a positive feedback loop that goes up to infinity, really. And then whenever you do fall on your ass, you just get back up on the horse and you keep going. That's the exactly secret there. And so I have 6 chances throughout the day to lift myself back up. And that's exactly what I do. But that is the in-depth version and explanation of why it works. But the simple short version, just to summarize, 6 times throughout the day, slow your breathing, meditate, get into a theta brainwave state, and associate to the good things and disassociate to the bad things. And that's as simple as that. 6 times throughout the day, and that will build up. And I truly believe that that's the most invaluable skill I've ever learned. And I think people can really benefit from it if they give that a shot. That's my perspective. I'm biased towards me.
Yeah,
but
that's so
truly believe
good.
It works.
That's okay. I mean, you've done it, but that's the credibility, not that you're really probably looking for credibility, right? But you're in this new season where you're leading people, and it's hard sometimes to lead people through an experience if you haven't already done it yourself. We can, but there's so much more credibility and authenticity when you come alongside someone and say, it's okay. I get it. I get it's hard today. I get it that it's hard to get up or it's hard to do the thing. And so I think that's really good. I went through a season of my life where stress, and I grew up in a kind of, not that I want to go with it, but crazy life, lots of abuse and things. And I was actually just talking to a young girl today about how when we grow up in an environment that's not healthy, like if our parents don't have healthy emotional intelligence and we're not trained how to, we're trained how to walk and we're trained how to talk and we get to experiment with all those things. when we're kids, as we learn to walk and we learn to talk and write, but we don't always get the safe space to be able to experiment with our emotions. And then we carry those around and we don't exactly know how to deal with them. And so she was kind of beating herself up today because she's had a hard life. And, so she's working through some family stuff. And I told her, I said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You just don't know how to manage or what to do with these feelings, right? These feelings. And you're internalizing it and saying that something's wrong with you, but it's not you.
Yeah.
And so I said, a year from now, you're going to look back and you'll be in a completely different place, but it's an intentional process, like you said, every day. And I said, so you don't have to fix it all today. You don't have to save the world today. But when you get into that mindset that it's hard or bad, or I'm this or that, I was like, maybe just stop. I obviously didn't have your method, but just stop and acknowledge that you feel that way. Just acknowledge it. You don't have to solve it today. You don't have to be perfect today. But you can at least start to develop the self-awareness to say, I feel something. I don't know exactly what that something is, but at least I'm acknowledging that it's there. I was like, and then you can continue to move through it, So I like the way that you said that. Like if you fall down, that's okay.
Awareness definitely is that first step.
Yeah. You get to get back up.
Yeah.
So it's not the absolutism, you have that growth mindset. So I would assume then just that one piece, which sounds like a really small part of a much bigger, you obviously have a pretty complex coaching program that has been built. Do you see quite a variety of different clients? I mean, because that one thing you taught, just that one thing, I could, solve. Every single person in the world could use that, right? One thing. So do you guys see a pretty diverse set of people in your coaching program?
Yes. We do see a very diverse set of people. My youngest client right now is 19 years old. He's awesome, amazing. I'm not going to say any names, but he's great. He's on his journey. He dropped out of college earlier than me, so I'm a bit jealous of him. And then, we have clients in their 60s as well. Guys and girls of all different backgrounds. But I'm the kind of guy who's going for the ultimate truth, right? That's why I am where I am right now. So I'm a believer that, these methods, the methods I want to live by and share, I want them to be applicable to as many people as possible. There's no one size fits all solution to all people in all situations. That's just illusion. It just doesn't exist. Besides simple universal truths like we all must breathe air, we all must drink water, right? These kinds of things. But other than that, I mean, even then, maybe there's some people that don't. I don't actually know.
I don't know.
There's some exceptions. But the point is, I think the 600 day method is going to be very, very beneficial to people. I know at the beginning, it is hard to hit 6 times a day at the beginning. I do think there is that bit of incubation period, like you said, about hey, like the girl you're talking to earlier today, the younger lady, about, hey, just have the awareness. That's step one, right? Awareness of the fact that something's not going good. And then eventually you'll find the courage to at least try to do something about it. So, and doing something about it is where the 6 times a day method can step in. If you're unaware, I mean, you're probably not even listening to this podcast, but if you are aware and you listen to this, then just try to catch yourself as much as possible. And then from that place, take control. So 6 times a day method works flawlessly. Honestly, it's so simple. And I've, from reading all the different resources I've done, there's a lot of studies, for and against so many things, but I feel like this is just the most simple universal truth that just works.
Sure.
It just makes sense emotionally and logically in my mind.
Yeah.
But I do think people should start with like a 2 times a day method and then bump it up to 3, 4, 5, 6, or like bump it up once a week. So 7 days, do 2 times a day. Then the next week, do 3 times a day. Then the next week, do 4 times a day, and just kind of ramp it up slowly. Otherwise, overwhelm is and burnout is very, very real. So I don't want to overwhelm people. It sounds very simple. 6 times throughout the day, 5 to 10 minutes. That's 30 to 60 minutes a day of meditation to turn your life around and to fully step into the best leader you could be in your business and on your teams. But I live by it religiously. I did it right before this podcast. I'm going to do it right after. And I'm going to hit my 6. And I'm going to ask my clients if they hit their 6. And that's really it. So
that's
I do
so
believe
good.
that that's the be all end all. If you can do that, then you can fully live your congruent self. And if you're living that congruent self and that congruent identity, then it's very easy to lead, whether it's your family. Like if you need to be a better father or husband or brother or son or whatever it is, you can use this. Like maybe you didn't respond the way you wanted to. And you're like, hey, I am not you can tell yourself, you can meditate for 5 minutes and then say, I am not my patterns, right? I am who I decide to be in this moment. And I decide to respond respectfully and authentically rather than that. Yeah. And if you just hammer that in while you're in a theta brainwave state 6 times throughout the day, 6 to 8 weeks later, trust me, you'll be communicating to your family much healthier, or to your spouse or you'll
To
stop
yourself.
hating your dog, or whatever weird things, or drinking alcohol, right? Or, eating junk food, or whatever negative self-talk internally, whatever the thing is that isn't serving you, you can undo it because you took that thing on at some point in your life, right? Because we're all fetuses at one point, which means you didn't have any of these bad habits. You inherited them.
Yeah.
And if they're inherited, they can be let go.
That's right.
And they can be replaced. So that's the secret to everything that I do here at Infinite Coaching with Zach Dixon and all the other coaches here. I believe that's the best way to become the most effective leader in your business, in your life, and in your relationships, by doing this and becoming as congruent as possible with who you want to be, whatever that may be.
Whatever that may be. That's so good. No, I love that. I'm super excited. What did you say? Hit your 6? Is that what you said? Is that your code word or your tagline? Hit your 6?
Yeah. I'm going to hit my 6X today. Yeah. I don't know if I always say it like that, but I decided on that wording just now. But yeah, I think I'm on number 3 or 4 right now. So I need to go finish those off for today.
That's all right. I'm going to put it on a Post-it and stick it on my desk because it's so good. So, all right. So my last question for you is, how do you keep showing up every day, even when it hurts? Like, what you've already talked a little bit about your passion and all your experiences, but what's the thing that keeps you moving?
Got it. So I think I'm going to draw a little bit on Tony Robbins here and also my own personal experience. The first thing I'll say is pain is unavoidable and pain is actually good. I think without pain, there's no pleasure, right? The duality of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you can transcend the duality into non-duality, but then that starts getting into a little bit too woo-woo, but it's still powerful. But I think it's a good way to think that there's no pain without pleasure. So pain is unavoidable. It's necessary. So when it comes up, it's as simple as having the courage to actually go through with the 6 times a day method, right? So I take cold showers every morning, and I do that for the exact reason of going into a stressful environment consciously that isn't dangerous. It's actually beneficial for my health. So I think that's perfect because if you can find something that's mentally hard but physically healthy, do that. I'm not going to prick my thumb with a knife every day for mental, grit. Maybe I could go that far, but I'd rather just take a cold shower and go into a sauna or get a hard workout in, right? Something productive physically, but hard mentally. Yeah. So building that courage, because pain is unavoidable, but I think having a vision and having a clear enough vision that you're so passionate about, whether it's like serving yourself to serve others, is I think a really good universal kind of human ambition, like serve yourself so you can serve others and just serve everybody. Yeah. I think if you have something like that in mind, like the way Elon Musk, whether you like or hate him, is trying to better the world through renewable energy and make us multiplanetary and, free speech on Twitter or whatever, or people that are trying to cure cancer or, people with nonprofits that are trying to, or people that help, orphaned kids, whatever your good purpose is, having that clear vision to serve yourself and serve others, I think will give you the emotional capital to recognize the pain and be willing to work against it. Right. So when I see the cold water and I'm like, it's 8 a.m. Why am I doing this? This is stupid. All I have to do is just turn it clockwise 180 degrees and it's going to be hot, but I don't. So I go into it and say, if I can't do this, I can't serve my family. I can't serve my partner. I can't serve my clients. I can't serve my team. So I do that. And, I miss it every now and then, but 9 out of 10 times I hit that cold shower and start my day off on a good note, because I know there's going to be other stressful things that come up. Maybe a sales call doesn't go my way. Maybe a podcast doesn't go my way. Maybe there's Mexican music playing in the background the whole time. I don't know, but something might happen. And whatever it is, I think no, pain is inevitable. Have that clear vision and passion to go after, and let that give you the courage and capacity to combat that pain with something like the 6 times a day method or the 7 times a day method, right? 6 is a bit arbitrary, but something akin to that, I think, will greatly serve people. So that's my view on that and how to overcome painful situations, whether it's a hard conversation, whether it's a physical hard thing, whatever it is. But you have to live and breathe it. Like David Goggins. I think David Goggins, right?
Yeah.
He is crazy. Like he lives and breathes tension. He lives pain. Okay. I'm going to switch it up. There's the 6 times a day method, and then there's the million times a day method, which is what David Goggins does. So he's constantly like pain, and going into it. But the same thought, the same series of thoughts applies there. Is if you're living and breathing it multiple times throughout the day with the goal of you being that thing and taking on that identity fully, so deeply for years,
Yeah.
you'll start to appreciate the pain and realize that it's necessary, because the universe is trying to kill us. So let's fight back and try to stay alive. I think I came to this conclusion the other day. With my friend. I was like, I think the meaning of life is to stay alive and not destroy ourselves and not let the universe destroy us. That's the meaning of life. Perpetuate. So I think
so
leadership
funny
is
you say
necessary
that.
for that. Yeah.
That's so funny. I'm in the study now, or the meaning of life, the purpose of life. I'm working through trying to identify what does purpose actually mean, and how
Not
do we
destroy
quantify
ourselves.
that, and not to destroy us. Yeah. Not to let the vampires take over the world, which they might not need food or water, vampires, but I think they're probably the only ones, or sleep, or air, actually, from the last book.
Or AI robots.
Or AI
the real vampires. AI.
The real ones. That's right. How funny.
That's the real, no food, no water, no sleep.
Yeah. So it's been really good. Well, how can people find you if they want to connect with you and your coaching and the team? How can they connect with you?
Perfect. Okay, so I'm not sure what platform this is going to be on, and people might even post this in new platforms don't even exist yet. But whatever platform this is on, hopefully there'll be a link somewhere to try out the 6 times a day method for free that Zach and I have. Or if you want to get in contact with me directly, simply just leave a DM me on Instagram. Okay. My handle is my first and last name, so just Aaron_Bernat. Just look at where this is posted. You can see my name, the proper spelling. But Aaron_Bernat is my Instagram. Just DM me something, or actually just leave a comment on my most recent post. I'll probably see it. And then you can be like, hey, I just found you on a podcast. Can I have the 6 times a day method? I'll follow you back, give it to you for free. Give it a shot and let me know how it goes. So that's how you guys can get in contact with me. Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Aaron, for coming on the show. It was great, and the music was great too.
Danita.
Totally fine. Yeah, you're welcome. It was great to meet you. Oh, yeah. They might be there all night. Yeah, truly a pleasure. I'm glad that we got to meet and share space together in the universe, and who knows what the future holds. So I'm super proud of all that you've done, and excited to see what the future next steps are for you and your team. So thanks for sharing all that today.
And thank you so much, Danita, for having me on. It was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Okay. Thanks for listening to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. This podcast was brought to you by our amazing producers at Wildfire Creative Company. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please hop over to iTunes or Spotify, subscribe, rate it, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. And make sure you come back. We'll talk more about the essence and elements of leadership on the first and third Thursday of every month. If you enjoyed today's show, you can head over to danitacummins.com/podcast and gain access to additional free resources. But make sure you subscribe to our newsletter so you can stay up to date on the latest shows. Have an amazing day. Talk to you soon.